All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin this lesson by giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in the proper names in the Paleo-Hebrew tongue. I want to say Kal Halayim, La Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim HaKakadash Ma'amath. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, whom the world ignorantly and willingly call God or Jehovah. Bahashim meaning in the name of Yahushai, meaning He who delivers, whom the world ignorantly and willingly call JC today. I want to give a double honor to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who grew well. I want to give another double honor to my elder as well, Ahar One bin Yasha Allah of the Lions Den Camp here in Jacksonville, Florida. Salutations to the 144,000 hopeful elect pushing this truth across the four winds, and to the 1/3 remnant believers on Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, Shalom, Shalom. Double honor to the bishop of the Lions Den Camp as well. So this is going to be a quick lesson put together through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, and I pray that it be edifying. So this lesson is centered around, my thoughts on becoming a new person. Not necessarily becoming a new person, but the truth changing you, forcing you to change into a new person. Going through an ego death and being able to see things for, what it is, And as I'm constantly dwelling on these thoughts, day after day, it makes me realize that, nothing is really yours in this life. And you're going to only be able to keep that which Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai has ordained you to keep, and that being what? Sophia, this wisdom, this knowledge, this understanding, the oil. I was just reading the scripture. It says, let thy head be constantly anointed with oil or something to that effect. I believe it's in Ecclesiastes. It's probably in the same chapter, Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Nope, it was in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. It was in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, like in the middle of the chapter. So I'm going to start off in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 10. It says, he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. So you have people out here, that love money, that love riches, that love getting, that love gaining. So much so as to where they'll do anything, to get increase. They'll do anything to get gain. They'll turn into a snake. They'll snake their friends. They'll turn their back on their children. All to get abundance, ultimately to not struggle. But before that, to basically be uplifted or be exalted by the lowly. So they're going to do whatever they got to do to get money. All right. So it says, verse 11, when goods increase, they are increased that eat them. And what good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes. So imagine spending your whole life trying to chase riches and wealth. The scripture say wealth maketh many friends. So you're going to chase riches and wealth, just for, people to become, to basically, to become your friend or fake like they love you, or you're going to be getting business partners or whatever the case may be, just for more people to eat your riches and your wealth. So guess what? You're going to have to work even harder. Your retirement plan that you set for yourself is going to constantly be getting pushed back in this life because of the wants and the needs of this life. Constantly having the thought to chase, to get. It says, verse 12, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. So, right. You're missing out on what's important for the body to basically thrive, which is sleep, which is rest. After my work week, you have a work week. I only work 4 days a week, and throughout those 4 days, I'm rushing to work out, to take care of my children, to stay strong, to do the work. You feel what I'm saying? So say after 2-3 weeks, it's gonna get to a point where I need 3 days of sleep, which I'm off 3 days. You know what I'm saying? So during them 3 days, I might be asleep countless hours throughout the day. just getting rest. You see what I'm saying? Catching up on rest. But when people rich, they just constantly taking drugs, Adderall, energy drinks, drinking hella coffee, just to try to keep going and chase the next dollar. And they always got the mindset to chase a dollar. You feel what I'm saying? So a rich man ain't gonna be able to sleep because he's gonna want he can have a house, but he gonna want a bigger house. If I had $50 million, I'd probably live in a 5-bedroom house because I know for a fact one day I'm gonna go broke again just because I'm not gonna accept the whatchamacallit and they gonna take the house. So you got Jake, they'll mess around and get $1 million and then go buy a $500,000 house. Just because Jake got to do it big or what it case me, they got to have a mindset to be the best or for somebody to look look at. They want to be had the mindset to do something new, like Gideon. I believe Gideon at war he took all the earrings off all the soldiers that died, and he I think he decorated his house with all those gold earrings. So all Israel was coming to look at his house, and it became a snare unto Gideon. That's what the scripture said, I believe. I haven't read it in a few months. But I'm gonna keep going. So the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. There is a sore evil which I have seen under the sun, namely riches kept for the owners thereof to their hurt. But those riches perish by evil travail, and he begetteth the son, and there is nothing in his hands. All right, imagine spending your life chasing riches, getting gain, not focusing on your needs but your wants. So you want your needs and your wants, and then you become a whole different person. And now you don't have anything to leave for your sons or your grandchildren, Or if on the flip side, you get riches, you getting your needs and your wants, and you able to leave something for your son, but your son a fool, and now he want to do it. He don't understand the process or what it took to even get to this point. How your body deteriorated, from not getting the amount of rest that you needed over the years. How your health faded because you wasn't eating the right things, getting the proper nutrients, getting the proper workout. So now you get a son, and he just wanna he don't understand what it took to get to that point, and he just want to basically spend money, and then now basically your grandchildren ain't got nothing because your son was a fool. And this lesson ain't gonna so much be about riches; it's gonna be about the fact that everything is vanity. Your children not yours, your woman not really yours, whether you took her virginity or not. If you the first one to lay with her, then you ain't gonna be the last one to lay with her, because she still got to deal with the flesh as well. If you the last one to lay with her, you wasn't the first one to lay with her. So it just gets to a point to where everything is vanity. That's the point of this lesson. So right, it says verse 15, and he came forth of his mother's womb naked shall he return to go as he became, and shall take nothing of his labor which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is a sore evil, that in all points as he came, so shall he go. And what profit have he that have labored for the wind? So he did all that just to have nothing in the end. So everything is vanity on this side. You could spend your whole life trying to chasten your children and get your children to grow up in a certain manner. But guess what? You their dad, but their father gonna have to teach them a lesson. They gonna have to know what it means to be evil. They gonna have to know what it means to be good. So, only thing we can do is pray for our children, that they don't fall off the deep end, and fall into a perverse lifestyle, or don't stray too far away from the track. But at the end of the day, they still gonna have to go through it to understand what it means to be good and evil. But us as fathers, as parents, we want our children to learn from our mistakes. So I'm going to get to the point to where I tell my children everything. Yeah, I went through this, and this is what happened, and then this how the Lord got me through that situation. So if I was you, I wouldn't want you to take that route. But at the end of the day, you're gonna do whatever you want to do in the first place, anyways, because it took a certain amount of butt whoopers for me to even get chastening for me to even get to this point. And you gonna have to go through it. You gonna have to feel it, which it hurts to even think about it. But once you realize that nothing is really yours, the more you try to be a lion, the more they gonna sneak. The more you be a lion to your woman, the more she gonna sneak and she gonna do. So it's nothing that you really could do in his life to basically only thing you could really do in his life is chase the Lord, and you learn your lesson and hope and pray that he have mercy on you and your family. I'm gonna keep going because there's so much that I want to say. But this is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 16 and verse 40. Oh, my people, hear my words. Make you ready to the battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth. So that's going to be the end goal. Imagine you trading crypto, making 50 million, just for you getting all of everything that you want. You smelling good every day. You looking good every day. You feel good every day. You still got to go through this battle, the Lord's test. You feel what I'm saying? So with all that get understanding. You want to get understanding so when you lose, it ain't gonna feel like a loss. You lose, you understand that, oh yeah, you had 50 million on this side. Well, okay, guess what? The Lord gonna give you 100-fold. It's just the next test that you got to go through. We had to go through tests of being homeless, poor. Might have a test of being rich. But guess what? You're gonna have to be poor again. And that's gonna be a major test because most people ain't gonna be able to handle it. Having these 501c3 charters, they're going to run and take the chip. So, right, it says, verse 41, he that selleth, let him be as he that fleeth away, and he that buyeth as one that will lose, and he that occupieth merchandise as he that have no profit by it, and he that buildeth as he that shall not dwell therein, and he that soweth as he should not reap. So also he that planted the vineyard as he that shall not gather the grapes. So just you got to understand that we're going to lose. We're going to lose a lot on this side. And you don't even know to what extent. You might have a big family. They might be hella smart children. You see what I'm saying? Then you got to go out like Job. So once you actually realize this, because we as man, bro, you'll be fighting to keep your family together. You'll be fighting to keep your family together, fighting to keep your children on the right path. And you'll be stressed and going crazy just for them to fall off the deep end, fall into sin because they still got to figure out for themselves. You see what I'm saying? So as a man, my advice, which I'm nobody, I'm just realizing this like for the past month or so, 2 months or so, that I don't own nothing. As a man, I would say just let go and focus on Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua. When you let go and focus on Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua, you're going to realize that everything is vanity, and that weight, the weight that keep the weight of this world ain't going to be able to hold you back. I believe Ezekiel, his wife had died and he still went out and teach, So once you had this mentality where I care, but I don't really too much care what I lose on this side. It's going to hurt because of the flesh, but spiritually I'm going to gain a lot, because I'm still on this roller coaster ride, with my father, my big brother, he went through it. So I'm able to just enjoy the ride. You just got to enjoy the ride. You see what I'm saying? So it says, verse 42, he that occupieth merchandise as he that have no profit by it, and he that buildeth as he shall not dwell therein, he that soweth as he should not reap. So also he that planted the vineyard as he that shall not gather the grapes. They that marry as they that shall not get children, as Salakia. They that marry as they that shall get no children, and they that marry not as the widowers. And therefore they that labor in vain. So that's just what it is, man. That's just what it is, and that's what I'm coming to terms with. You see what I'm saying? You could have your children, and then a wicked woman can take your children away from you and fill your children's head up with straight dogma. Now the children that you spent so many years trying to raise up on the right path, they out there celebrating wicked holidays, and all. It's all because they gotta get to the point to where they're able to rebuke it in the future, if that be the Lord's will, when they finally come to the understanding. But you still got to deal with a wicked woman taking away your children and filling your children's head up with dogma. So that might be something. So you might be so mad that you want to crash out, and you crash out, you justified. You justified, but guess what? Now you gotta sit in bondage, prison, And now your children ain't got nobody. So guess what? The world gonna teach them. You ain't no telling what the world gonna teach them. You see what I'm saying? So in that, if a brother dealing with that in that situation, you just gotta let go. You just gotta let go. You know what I'm saying? And understand what what our forefathers, our men been going through for years, and just be able to accept it and just be grateful. And still hold on to the Lord. So they that marry as they that shall get no children, and they that marry not as the widowers, and therefore they that labor in vain. For strangers shall reap their fruits and spoil their goods, overthrow their houses, and take their children captive. For in captivity and famine shall they get children, right? And your children's mother or grandmother might be the oppressor over the children. Or some people's children might actually go into captivity. The fruit of the womb. The fruit of the land wasn't ours. The fruit of the womb might not even be yours. So whatever the Lord take you through in the near future, you just got to get ready to go through it. Verse 47, and they that occupy their merchandise with robbery, the more they deck their cities, their houses, their possessions, and their own persons, the more will I be angry with them for their sins, said the Lord. So the Lord see the oppression of his people. He know what we going through. So imagine you spending all this money on a house. This devil take you through all type of captivity to keep, end up taking your house, Gaza, building a whole smart city, on your land. That was basically your inheritance. So now you got to flee or be unalive because this devil wants your land. So just imagine what they gonna do to us when they take all our stuff. And you out there, dealing with the elements. You see what I'm saying? You better hope you got the Lord. You better hope you got the Lord because Salakia. You better hope you got the Lord because the Lord, man. Even on a small level, imagine you got to sleep outside. You imagine you got to sleep outside, and you was used to sleeping in a nice air conditioned house. Now you got to sleep outside with mosquitoes and shit. You sweating. Just imagine that. You know what I'm saying? And the Lord's so merciful, he make the mosquitoes just, go on about their business like he did for Jonah. Like a gourd grew up to keep the sun away from Jonah, and then the Lord basically caused a worm to eat it. That was merciful. That was the Lord showing his mercy. You see what I'm saying? So this devil, he gonna take all our stuff, man. We're gonna be in an uncomfortable position. Imagine, all type of situations. Just you gotta deal with the elements. You're used to taking a shower every night. Your skin, you gotta take a shower, and now you gotta go without a shower for a few days. I know people like that basically can't go without a shower. I ain't gonna talk too much, Salakia. It says, verse 48, the more will I be angry with them for their sins, said the Lord. Like as a whore envieth a right, honest, and virtuous woman, so shall righteousness hate iniquity when she decketh herself, and shall accuse her to her face when she cometh that shall defend him that diligently searcheth out every sin upon earth. So Yahweh Shem Shai, he see everything that's going on, and he's basically going to be angry, at the wicked for the things that they do, Verse 51, and therefore be ye not like thereunto, nor to the works thereof. So, right, we have to be separate. We was called to be holy and separate, because at the end of the day, we're going to lose, man. We're going to lose a lot on this side, but we're going to gain it 100-fold in the kingdom of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. So, we got to try to keep our emotions out of the equation and just deal with what we got going, what Yahweh Shemashah going to take us through. This is Isaiah chapter 24 and verse 1. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the maid, so with her mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him. Lock you. So when it's all said and done with, man, Yahweh Shem Shai gonna visit the earth. Ain't nobody gonna be exempt. Esau ain't gonna be exempt. They gonna be going through it. At one point it was just Jake, but everybody gonna be going through it. The Lord's finna visit the earth. You know, so he that buy it is gonna be just like him that sell it. I'm trying to speed through it. So this is 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 11. Seeing then that all these things, verse 10, but the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burnt up. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of person ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? So we're gonna lose, man. All everything that we see is gonna be burnt up. World War III is gonna come to pass. All the prophecies that's written in the scripture is gonna come to pass. You hear brothers speaking about it every single day, right? It says, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of person ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of Yahweh, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. So when that new heaven and that new earth is established, that's when we're going to receive our reward. That's when we're going to be able to enjoy our children, millions of children, after the process of time. We're going to have millions of children, millions of wives. You see what I'm saying? Through the process of time. We're never going to be able to die again. We're going to receive our inheritance. We're going to be more than rich. We're going to be dwelling with the Lord in truth and sincerity. Yeah, all your wives going to be a virgin. You ain't going to never have to deal with somebody else land with your wife in the kingdom that's going to, to come. You're going to mess around and live. Imagine you've been living 50 million years and you still looking young, and ain't no Israelite brother trying to live with your wife, because guess what? You have the law, statutes, commandments written in you. It's impossible for you to sin. And that's what it's going to be like in the kingdom of heaven. The Israelites are going to have the law, statutes, and commandments written in them, and it's going to be impossible for us to sin. And we're going to be judging the other nations because they ain't going to have that blessing. They ain't going to have the abilities to not sin, but they still going to be forced to follow the law, statutes, commandments, just like we forced to follow Esau's commandment. You see what I'm saying? We ain't going to have to deal with a nation over here trying to create nukes and go to war. No, they're going to have plowshares in their hand, farming tools, working. You see what I'm saying? So we look forward to that new heaven and that new earth that's going to be established. Right? Wherein dwelleth righteousness. It says, verse 14, wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye may be found of him in peace, without spot and blameless. So that's just what it is, man. So we want to be temperate and understand that we're going to lose on this side. No matter what we lose, we still got to stay on the course. We still got to stay the course, man. Roller coaster will go up and down, but at the end of the day, we still got to stay the course and be grateful, that we were called to be able to take on the sufferings of Yahweh Shai. So this is Matthew chapter 19. In verse 27, it says, Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Yahweh said unto him, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, right? The regeneration, coming back over and over through the third and fourth generation. You die. You go up to the Father, receive your judgment, then you come back down and you do exactly what the Father wants you to do. If you was a prophet, you're going to come back, you're going to be a prophet over and over again. If you're a righteous man that believed on the prophets, you're going to come back, you're going to be righteous over and over again. If you was wicked, you're going to come back and you're going to be wicked still. Like it says in the book of Daniel, in the book of Revelations, let the wicked be wicked still and the righteous be righteous still. Right? It says, verse 28, and Yahushua said unto him, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit on the throne of his glory, right, which will be on the earth, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So right. So that's just what it is, man. So we're going to be judges in the next life. We're going to be the new government of the kingdom of heaven with the 144,000. Lord willing, we're part of that number. All right. And all the disciples are going to be there, which they are back today, still preaching and teaching, on the highways and byways. They still here. You see what I'm saying? 144,000, most of them still here preaching and teaching. All the prophets, Daniel back, King David, you see what I'm saying? If he back or, in the spiritual realm or gonna be born, whichever, all the prophets, they still here. Ezekiel, Jeremiah, they here, they teaching, doing the will and the work of Yahweh Shem Shah, following the Lord in the regeneration. What he told Daniel, he said, but go, seal the book, but go thy way. And go thy way to the time of the end. You're going to sleep with your fathers. You're going to die. And then in the end of days, you're going to stand in your lot. So Daniel's back here standing in his lot. He told Esdras, even when a number of seeds are fulfilled in you, you're going to be back. It says, in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And in the 12 tribes of Israel, They all here. Most of them wicked. 2/3 of our people wicked as hell. The Lord said he going to kill unalive 2/3 of our people. But guess what? We're going to be judges over them. We're going to be kings and priests over them. And they're going to be righteous because when they come back, they're going to have the law, statutes. When they born on this earth, they're going to have the law, statutes, and commandments in them. They're going to be one with Yahweh Bahashim Yahshua, like the movie Avatar. The babies be born in the water and they automatically be getting along with whales and all type of animals and stuff. That's what it's going to be like. They're going to be one with Yahweh Bashim Ashai. Keep going. Verse 29. And everyone that have forsaken houses or brethren or sisters, and everyone that have forsaken houses or brethren or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. So that's what it is, man. That's what it is, man. You had to forsake your brother, your sister, because they ain't with the truth. They ain't with all that Israelite. They ain't with all that Bible. You're going to receive 100, 100-fold. That great multitude, that's going to be saved. You're 144,000 brothers. You see what I'm saying? Or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife. You have thousands of wives. Or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold. And the Lord said in his Father's house are many mansions. We're going to travel to every single last planet. We're going to inherit the whole galaxy. We're going to receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. All right. That's just what it is, man. So Yahweh Shah had to go through it. We're going to have to go through it. But we're going to receive 100-fold. For taking on the sufferings of Yahweh Bahashim El Shah. I pray this lesson is edifying. Shalom. On to the next.